Hello, YouTubers. This is DasGregor. I've not been doing so well. Had another cold. You know, I lived 3 years in Kansas, and I think I only got sick one time in those 3 years. I've moved to Arizona, and it seems like every couple months I seem to get sick. I don't know what it is. The funny thing about it is I never realized how much I got sick until I started going through my videos and realizing, oh gee, every couple months or so I'm apologizing because I had a cold or something. And man, it's pretty bad. Oh well. I'm just now getting over it. I got really busy last week. I would have done a video, but one of my manager from New Mexico was in town, and so I was busy with things, and work was pretty busy too last week. So I decided, now that I can talk better and I'm not hacking and sneezing and all that stuff, I figured no one wants to watch a blog of me blowing my nose. And although I sound a little hoarse, I feel a lot better than I sound. So, hooray for that. Anyway, I'd like to thank a lot of my new subscribers. I appreciate you watching. I hope you guys enjoy my video blogs. I know I'm not very exciting, and I know right now I sound like I'm talking monotone and gee, this is really good to put you to sleep, so if you all need to go to sleep, just sit back, relax, close your eyes, and with my deep, mellow voice, I'll tell you a story that will put you to sleep. Does that wake everybody up now? Okay, on with the blog. Yeah, anyway, like I was saying, thanks for all my new subscribers. I hope you enjoy watching. I'll have to do another salute sometime soon. One particular subscriber asked if I would mention him, so I will. His name is Pierre, and he's from Sweden. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy my videos as well. And as I've always said, feel free to leave comments. I like hearing comments. I try to be positive, and I know that some of my videos are kind of strange, especially when I start talking about Linux and those sort of things. But I always appreciate constructive criticism, reminding you that it's constructive. And I don't mind the occasional "he's off his rocker" comment. I don't delete them all. Actually, I don't delete any. I don't think I've deleted any ever. But that's it. So, anyway, it's one of those evenings where I thought I really should just do something. Hadn't really thought of anything to talk about, but I've had a lot of people ask me about Linux lately, especially after all my Linux woes. So maybe I'll chat a little bit about Linux for a little bit. I use Gentoo. Gentoo is a flavor of Linux that lets you build everything from the ground up, and it's very nice because you can customize it to exactly what you need. You don't need the whole distribution. You can only piece together what you really want, and that's a really neat thing about Gentoo. And the camera that I use is a Sony camera. It's a TRV 340. It's about 3 to 5 years old, so it is kind of an older technology, but it has FireWire on it, or IEEE 1394, and I'm able to plug it directly into my laptop, where I stream it into a program called Kino, spelled K-I-N-O. Now Kino takes raw FireWire video input and audio and allows it to record to the hard drive through Linux, and it's very easy to use. And then afterwards I can take it from that raw video format, which is very large and bulky, and I can convert it into anything from AVI, MPEG, I think even QuickTime style videos. And that's what I use to make my videos. Now I had to make sure that I built FireWire into the kernel. With Gentoo it's very easy to do. I don't claim to be a guru at Linux, and I do like shortcuts. And Gentoo has something called the oh, my mind went blank. Don't you just love that? I installed something called Gentoo Sources, which is kind of it's a version of the kernel that Gentoo offers that has most of the configurations already in it. And then I use a Gentoo configuration tool that just automates the process of building the kernel for me, but allows me to use commands like the menu config all command that allows me to go in and actually see the kernel menu and select my options and do that sort of thing. And I just go in there and I optimize it a little bit better. For instance, I take out a lot of the hardware that I don't need. For instance, you don't need it to build modules for every video card that's out there or every audio card that's out there. You only need it to build the modules for the video card that you know is out there. So that helps get rid of some of the fluff, because it's not too often you change out your video card. And it's not that hard to rebuild your kernel if you ever need to add a video card. Just always remember to include generic VGA support so that it'll work no matter what, just in case you do take out the video card and put in something else. But you just have to go in there, and I use a version of the kernel that's version 2.6. Actually, I'm using 2.619 right now, and it seems to be pretty stable. And I just made sure that FireWire was actually built into the kernel instead of as a module. There's two ways of thinking when building your kernel. You can go completely module, and what that means is you've got a very small kernel. Now, even you Windows users have a kernel. It's the heart of the operating system. This is the very center that has all the command structures for the OS to be able to run. In a Linux kernel, you're able to configure it, which is something you can't do with a Windows kernel. And in a Windows kernel, everything I think is pretty much just built into it. So you've got this huge bloated kernel that no matter what you plug into your Windows, it's going to recognize it and detect it and be able to tell you what type of device or hardware that you plugged into it. With Linux, you can do the same thing. You can build everything into the kernel, so it's just pretty much plug and play, and everything you would ever possibly plug in that it can support will detect and probably most likely load. Or you can build modules so that it builds, for lack of a better term, a bunch of drivers that sit on the hard drive, and when you plug something in, you have to then tell it to probe that module, and if detected, it loads it into memory. This gives you a very small kernel that will boot very quickly. For instance, I've had some kernels that I've made so small that literally the operating system gets you from point A to point B as soon as you turn on the computer, and in less than 20 seconds, and you're at a command prompt to do whatever you need to do. Now, that's because it has so very little to load at the beginning. Have you ever wondered with your Windows XP or Windows 2000 or anything like that, when you're sitting there at the logo screen and you see that little bar going across the bottom of the screen and you're sitting there forever while it's doing that? Well, what it's doing is it's loading its kernel in the background, and it's loading all the possible drivers, all the possible file systems that you'd ever use. Everything that you'd ever need is being loaded pretty much in that background, and it continues to load as it goes through all that. So that's one of the basic benefits of the kernel. But in regards to being able to use YouTube and using the Sony camcorder, I don't put a tape in it. I just stream whatever live video and audio feed straight from here right into the computer, and that's all. I could take a tape, stick it in there, and then my system would recognize that I had a tape, and I could just hit the capture command, and it would actually just it would actually control my camcorder, play the tape back, and also put it right into the system that I could use. Very neat. So For any of you new subscribers who've been asking me a lot of Linux questions, I hope that answers a little bit, and be more than willing to answer any other questions you might have or to help out. I know one fellow asked me a question about a specific audio card. I believe it was by Realtek, or it might have been a Creative card, but unfortunately, this is why someone made a comment that they think that Linux will never be in the mainstream as a true alternative to Windows. That's true and false in my opinion. Linux has a long way to go before it's regular or usable, I think, by the average user. Right now, I still feel you have to buy your hardware around the operating system. In which case, his comment about it's only good for geeks and nerds is probably true, because I'd have to do a lot of configuring, a lot of tweaking to make it work. That's why I like it so much. It gives more power to me and less power to someone who thinks they know what I want. I don't have my system every 2 seconds saying, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to do that? And I don't have to worry about viruses. I don't have to worry about a lot of problems that Windows users are plagued with. But I lose a lot of conveniences by doing that, because not everybody programs for Linux and not everybody sets up programs for Linux. So I have to do a lot of searching, a lot of finding of new ways of doing things. So in that aspect, yes, it's not ready for mainstream. But Linux has come so far so fast, and it's growing so quickly. So I really feel that even in the next 2 to 5 years, that Linux could become a desktop operating system used by the average user. It just has a long way to go with driver development, and there's always issues about open source and the fact that most people like to keep their drivers closed. They don't like to share their code of how they make things work. I don't know if that's because sometimes it's sloppy programming and they're embarrassed. It's one of those things. You made it work. I don't want people to know how I made it work. It just works, so take my word for it. It works. And other people are, oh no, look at what I have. I have nothing to hide. Here's all my source code, and give it to the world and make it better. I kind of like that idea much better, because it seems to be better for sharing. But anyway, I'll shut up and close this. Hopefully I haven't bored too many people. While I'm still speaking alright, maybe I'll go ahead and do another chapter in the Adventures of Prince Edmund, because I keep saying I will, and I haven't yet. So let me finish this up, get it started, and I'll start another chapter of Prince Edmund. Good talking to y'all, and I hope you enjoy that book. I keep trying to remind you, it came from a 14-year-old's mind, so be kind. I'm not editing it, I'm not redoing it, I'm just reading it word for word the way I wrote it back in 1988, I believe. So, anywho. Tschüss, Arrivederci, Auf Wiedersehen, good day, good evening, good night, whatever you're having, enjoy it. Bye.